Hello everybody, it's Wyvern here with another bit of Total War Warhammer quick match gameplay. This time around I'm playing as the Wood Elves against the Empire, led by Chidzi, on the map Altdorf Outskirts. So let's break this battle down. So gonna throw things into slow-mo real quick, because the match starts pretty quickly on the right flank over there in the Vanguard deploy zone. So this time around I'm running Orion as my commander. I wanted to try out something different than the Glady, because I've been relying on her Prevan Athrema and Arrows of Kurnus a bit like a crutch lately, and I wanted to try something out. Orion, of course, coming in with the Horn of the Wild Hunt and the Cloak of Isha, his two special items. Cloak of Isha will reduce the damage he takes after he's dropped to low health, and the Horn of the Wild Hunt, when activated, gives all of his units on the map a pretty hefty charge and speed bonus. Next to him, of course, is the Branch Wraith, once again to give that slight speed bonus to all units on the map, with Smoke and Mirrors, a slight melee attack to all the units around him, which will be most of my army, I think. And of course, Earthblood, Melka's Mystifying Miasma, with the Withering, Foe Seeker, and a Scroll of Protection. My front line is composed of 4 units of Eternal Guard with shields, basically just there to provide me with a solid front line, tank enemy shots, absorb enemy skirmisher fire with their silver shields, that sort of thing. Behind them, 2 units of War Dancers with swords, basically just there to smush any Empire infantry except great swords, which will destroy them, but other than that, they should tear through everything, even flagellants, fairly quickly. Then behind that, 2 units of War Dancers with Azrai Spears, just there to shut down Empire Heavy Cav, which is definitely a common pick for Empire. They definitely rely on it quite often, I think. In the meantime, on the right flank over here, I am running a unit of Wild Riders with shields, a unit of Wild Riders, and a unit of Sisters of the Thorn. I wanted to give the Sisters of the Thorn a chance. I want to try them out. I haven't used them before in competitive play because they do have a fairly bad reputation for being not too useful, but I wanted to try them out, give them a shot, and show you guys how they worked out. They are a special cavalry skirmisher unit that comes in with the Curse of Anrair and Shield of Thorns as a castable ability, so they can spam it on cooldown, just like Orion's 2 abilities. He has a bombardment and a Vortex, Hounds of Orion, and Hawk's Talon. So there you go. My opponent does have Zintler's Reiksguard, which is all the way out here in the front, and they are immediately going to flee away from my army. In the meantime, over here on this flank, he does have 2 units of Reiksguard and Royal of Remies hidden here in the trees, so that is a very, very hefty heavy cavalry contingent. His commander is Volkmar over here on foot, probably hoping not to get shot down, which would possibly be the case if I brought Skirmish and he brought the Altar. He does come in with Soulfire and his various melee and ward save buffs, as well as his leadership buffs. Then front line composed of a mix of spearmen and swordsmen, and some fire support from the crossbows. And finally in the back we have 2 units of mortars, which will definitely do a nasty number on the Elven infantry if they catch them out in the open. So that's definitely something I was a little worried about. Here I am pushing my units forward just outside of mortar range, which is around here, I think. And over here my Wild Riders are trying to catch Zintler's Reiksguard. Zintler's Reiksguard does have armor, so they will be fairly resilient, but I'm hoping to drop some poison on them with the Sisters of the Thorn and kind of damage down the Zintler's Reiksguard with Frenzy up. Unfortunately, I don't get too many kills. I pick off about 5 or 6 models, I think, and then promptly retreat away from my opponent. I'm not wishing to stick around for too long. And now I move my Sisters of the Thorn into the way here because they do have physical resistance. They have very high physical resistance of 50%, so they're much tankier than their low armor would suggest. Simply there to screen my Wild Riders if my opponent decides to pursue with the Reiksguard. As you can see, I'm right outside the mortar range. I don't know if that was actually aimed or if that was my opponent like manually aiming the mortars, trying to intercept my cavalry, or something else. So only 6 models picked off on the Zintler's Reiksguard, but about a fifth of their health off. Now I'm going to push forward with all my units. I don't pop the Horn of the Wild Hunt just yet. I want to get fairly close so that I can get the charge bonus out of it as well. And here you can see the storm of artillery fire already coming in, and it's going to be absolutely devastating to this poor unit of Eternal Guard with shields over here. Already down about a fifth of their health and losing 5 models. Fortunately, the War Dancers with Azrai Spears are not taking the burn of the fire, though, so I'm definitely glad about that, because that's something I'd be much more worried about. Orion over here walking, unfortunately, but I finally pop is moving fast. And over here my cavalry is trying to kind of move over to the left flank to screen against my opponent's cavalry. And as you can see, the Eternal Guard are absolutely getting smushed by the artillery bombardment. Already down 17 models, and about over half of their HP by the look of it. Yeah, just about half, just a little over half their HP is down. In the meantime, our cavalry is shifting over. They will not do very well at all if the Empire cavalry actually decides to fight them. But backed up by the War Dancers with Azrai Spears, And the Sisters of the Thorn, I'm definitely hoping to at least stop my opponent's artillery, if not, or my opponent's cavalry from hitting the back line of my infantry. Crossbow fire coming in, but the Eternal Guard have silver shields, so they should be able to largely ignore that. I did drop a bombardment smell of the mortars, did a little bit of damage, nothing crazy. And now I drop a Hounds of Orion just to disrupt the crews and do a little bit of damage to my opponent's front line in exchange for the damage he did to me with mortars. But as you can see, the mortars are definitely dishing out a lot more hurt. And being a vortex spell, the Hounds of Orion are kind of unreliable. But it's okay because they're very spammable and cheap. Over here, cavalry still zoning. Azrai spears are lining up over here just to be ready to intercept my opponent's heavy cav. And the regular, I did pop the Horn of the Wild Hunt over there, and my War Dancers are diving straight in, right as the Nurse Blood goes down, healing up these frontline Eternal Guards, trying to keep them in the fight long enough to take on these spears and swords. I'm definitely a little worried going in because while Empire infantry is not as while regular Empire swords and spears are not as good as not as cost effective against Wood Elves Eternal Guard as say Flagellants, they are still they will still do very well, especially when my Eternal Guard are this badly softened up. So I'm definitely a little nervous. But with the War Dancers there, it should swing in my favor. Unfortunately, Orion over here is still throwing the javelins, which is a bit of a mistake. I should have turned him onto melee stance right off the bat, and I forgot to do that. I always forget that he's not a melee hero or melee lord, even though he basically plays like it. Branch Wraith is a little far behind once again. A bit of a micro mistake on my part. My opponent discharges Reichsguard into the back of my Eternal Guard, which is threatening to kind of break him over here. But with the Branch Wraith coming in and the War Dancer's Azrai Spear coming into the rear, these guys are going to get absolutely torn apart. In the meantime, my cavalry over here is trying to flank. Unfortunately, despite the fact that there was poison going down on these Zindler's Reichsguard and the Royal Thorn Griffites, they were catching up, so I decided to throw the Sisters of the Thorn into the mix just to slow these guys down. Drop the Curse of Honorary, which will slow them down by 24%. And having 50% physical resistance, the Sisters of the Thorn won't get mauled too badly by the enemy heavy cavalry. Definitely not as badly as the Wild Riders, who only have 20% physical resistance and whose armor is going to be practically irrelevant anyway. Over here, the Volkmar is not really able to save the crossbows. The crossbows are immediately breaking. Bombardment spell is going down on my enemy's backline again. His Reichsguard is already broken. His infantry is getting swarmed all over by the Azrai Spears, the Eternal Guard, the War Dancers. Over here, though, is where the fight's definitely going down. Sisters of the Thorn do dash in. I'm dropping an Earthblood over here, and I will shortly be dropping a Shield of Thorns down from the Sisters of the Thorn, and that'll definitely help the Wild Riders trade very efficiently. The Eternal Guard is able to hold his ground against the Reichsguard. Maybe not ideal, but definitely not. They won't do terrible. And over here, Orion's diving into the mix. He'll definitely do okay against the Reichsguard and the Royal Thorn Griffites. He does have armor-piercing attacks, so definitely a force to be reckoned with. Wild Riders with Earthblood and with the Sisters of the Thorn over here. The Sisters of the Thorn did break from terror because they got terrified by the Royal Thorn Griffites, but they'll shortly recover and be able to take on this Reichsguard. They'll be able to slow them down over there. In the meantime, my opponent's left flank is completely crumpled. This infantry really didn't have a chance against all the War Dancers. The War Dancers racking up immense amounts of kills. Now I'm just pursuing my opponent, trying to make sure this infantry doesn't come back. I do try to juggle over some of the Azrai Spears to deal with the cavalry. Unfortunately, I forgot one of the units over here. That was definitely a bit of a mistake. They should have been dealing with the cavalry. This Eternal Guard I accidentally pulled out once again, relying on hotkeys a little bit too much sometimes. I should have been microing choosing specific Eternal Guard units. But over here, the cavalry is getting trashed. Wild Riders, of course, are dying slowly but surely. The Sisters of the Thorn, as you can see, locking down these Reichsguard. They aren't doing immense amounts of work, but the Reichsguard isn't really able to do damage to them very much either. As you can see, let's see what cycle of damage goes in. Cycle of damage goes in, and they took about 18 damage. That's pitiful. They definitely have okay melee stats, and if they're not taking a charge, they'll do passable work. And as you can see, some of the Sisters of the Thorn that broke through are now throwing spears at the back, these guys back, so doing some damage there. Orion over here slugging out with Volkmar. Volkmar is a worse melee combatant than Orion. And Melkosmith's Fire Massimo does go down to the Spearman. It is basically a poor man's Fate of Buna against squishy units, and so it'll absolutely devastate these guys. You can see they're falling apart. Bombardment's going down from Orion to break this cavalry, and that is it. I accidentally clicked on the end replay button there. But that was a pretty quick match. I wanted to basically showcase Orion and the Sisters of the Thorn, just see how they would work out against Empire, which is fairly not too magic heavy faction. The Sisters of the Thorn, I think, paid for themselves. I think the Shield of Thorns, the Curse of Anariar, while it's not amazing, when it's just an ability, when you don't have to rely on Winds of Magic for it, they both definitely were decent. And I definitely don't think they were bad. This poison helped a little bit at keeping my cavalry away from my opponent. I don't think they were necessarily as cost efficient as if I could have probably upgraded these guys to Wild Riders shields and gotten a unit of War Dancers with Azrai Spears if I'd an extra unit of War Dancers Azure Spears. If I dropped the Sisters of the Thorn, I would have probably gotten more use out of that. But still was interesting. I don't think they were terrible. I think that they're definitely a passable pick for Wood Elves. If you know exactly what you want to use them for. And here I wanted to use them just to support my cavalry. Orion, dishing out the hurt, very strong hero, shutting down. He causes terror, and that's just always useful. Was able to help break my opponent's line, which didn't have any flagellants in it. Branch Wraith, once again, is utility. Earthblood, Melcosmos, Divine Miasma, all that sort of stuff. The only real disadvantage with the Branch Wraith is that you can't channel Arcane Conduit, so it can be a bit of an issue to keep your Winds of Magic up sometimes. Eternal Guard with shields did okay. They're not amazing against enemy cheaper combat infantry, but they did okay. Especially given that they took a nasty beating from the artillery early on. War Dancers, of course, doing amazing work. With the spears completely destroying some of those Reichsguard and heavy cavalry, and the War Dancer with swords absolutely tearing through my opponent's frontline infantry. They're very, very powerful. It's a unit I'm getting more and more appreciation for every time I play them, so I definitely think it's very solid. Wild Riders, once again, combination of fear, frenzy, high mobility. They just performed very well. They got some decent early game damage in on Zintler's Reichsguard, and they just were a very solid unit. Sisters of the Thorn did okay. I think the kills were a bit one-sided. I definitely think my opponent was preparing, I think, for a more skirmish-heavy build, which is why he brought so much heavy cavalry. So I couldn't, had I brought a more skirmish-heavy build, I would have probably been in a lot more trouble, because the combination of mortars, crossbows, shields, and heavy cav would have put me in a much worse position. But against this sort of force, it wasn't quite able to hold. That's one thing I definitely like about Wood Elves. One of the things I like about Wood Elves is the fact that you can run several comps that function completely differently from each other, and that always keeps your opponent on your toes. It's kind of like what the Empire can do. In comparison, something like Dwarves, for example, or Beastmen are almost always going to run a very similar comp. They only have one or two strategies they can really run. So definitely something I enjoy about Wood Elves. A good game to my opponent. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, be sure to leave a like or subscribe down below. I appreciate you for watching, and over and out.